Okay, welcome everyone. This is the October 14th, 2025 meeting of the Seneca County IDA. We have a quorum. We're going to get started. We begin with the minutes of the last meeting. Is there a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting?
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Second, the financial statements through August. Mr. Kernan.
Thank you. We're going to reference the balance sheet and the profit and loss statement. The comparative balance sheet, assets measured $3,593,000 at the end of August. That's a decrease of $48,000 from the July position. Decrease is due to the following account changes. Cash operating was down $48,000. The decrease is due to the net loss incurred during the month of August. Cash revolving loan fund increased $1,657 in August due to loan payments. Notes receivable long-term decreased $1,491 due to the payments made by Best Made. Net fixed assets decreased $150 in August, and that's due to depreciation expense. On the liability and equity side, total liabilities and equity measured $3,593,000 on August 31st. Again, a decrease in this case of $48,733 from July position. The decrease is due to the following account changes. Credit card decreased $240 in August, and net income loss for the month was $48,543. On a profit and loss statement, ordinary operating income, total ordinary operating income measured $121,337 on August 31st. The following account totals account for the August totals. Agency fees, $25,138, again through August. Seneca County, $65,000, again through August 31st. RFL income measured $38,18 through August 31st, and net income measured, interest income measured $28,017 through August 31st. For the month of August in total, the ordinary income increased only $192. Ordinary operating expenses. Total ordinary operating expenses measured $331,247 on August 31st. The following account for those totals. Payroll measured $155,351, benefits $89,313, professional services $45,552, general office $38,084, administration and tech $11,972, insurance, in this case a minus $1333, miscellaneous expense $168, travel and conferences $2392, repairs and maintenance $17,533, marketing and promotion $178, depreciation expense $1,200, RFL expenses $55. Total ordinary expenses increased by $48,725 in a month. In this case too, for payroll, there were 3 payrolls which occurred during the month of August. Net ordinary income. Total net ordinary income or loss in this case measured $209,909 on August 31st. The loss is due to the items that were so noted above. There were no other income measured for August 31st, or no other expenses. The bottom line, net income or loss, in the case loss, measured $209,909 on August 31st. The loss is due to ordinary operating income measuring $121,337, less ordinary operating expenses measuring $331,242 on August 31st. That's again a condensed review of both the balance sheet and the operating statement. Are there any questions?
Questions for Bob? Thank you, Bob. Motion to approve the financial report.
I so move.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Bob. We've got a couple things on the agenda here, and the particular one that's coming up next is the local employment waiver that was requested. Before we do that, I'd like to just give a visitor a moment, 5 minutes max, to address the board in what you would call an open privilege of the floor, which we don't do on a normal basis, but it's certainly something that if we have people here and who wish to speak to us, I think it's a good practice. So for the open privilege of the floor, we have a guest here. Can you tell us who you are and you have 5 minutes? Sure, that's fine. You have 5 minutes.
I'll keep it shorter than that. How about that? My name is Tom Igrizzo. I represent the Carpenters Union in this area. I oversee the solar initiative for New York State for the Carpenters Union. So I briefly want to talk to you about some up and coming projects that you have. Number one, Charlena, which is about an 80 megawatt farm. With local labor, with all the work in the area, when a developer comes in and asks for a waiver, you might want to strongly consider that. In this area, I believe it's 70%. If they come to you for a waiver of 35 to 40% of local labor, I think that would be beneficial to Seneca County. Now, I say that because currently, right now, I'm overseeing a project in Genesee County, which is a 500 megawatt farm. And they have a local labor waiver of, I believe, 37 to 40%, somewhere in that window, okay? With that waiver, I was able to employ 200 new people into the workforce, 200. Yes, sir.
When you say waiver, I'm not clear on what you mean by that.
So if you had a 70% mandate, you'd have to pull 70% of the workforce from Seneca County. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
To me, with all the construction that's going on and what's about to happen, which is Micron in Syracuse, you're going to see a majority of your skilled trades migrate to that job. Okay, so in this area, it might be difficult to pull a 70% workforce. Okay, now you're always going to get travelers coming in from an out-of-town company. They bring their skilled staff or their people that know what's going on, and then the local support. So I would imagine the developer at some point will come to you and say, hey, we need a waiver because we're not gonna be able to man the job locally at 70%. But what I'm saying is between 35 and 40%, you're gonna still, on that project, you're probably gonna employ about 100 to 150 local people to earn prevailing wage for, I would say, within a year to 18 months, whatever the time frame is.
So you're saying you're in favor of such a waiver?
That is correct.
Okay.
Just to clarify, the 35 to 40% local labor requirement is realistic in your view?
Realistic. It's realistic. 70%, you may get there. I mean, when you're talking 400 people, right? So 280 people have to be local. There's a lot of construction out there. And if you talk to union or non-union, it doesn't really matter, union or non-union, everybody's scrambling for a workforce, right? But what I'm saying is on these projects, you're gonna locally be able to bring in people that maybe aren't in construction currently. Also think about the administrative side. Go to the developer or the EPC that comes in and say, hey, can we put 1 or 2 admins on the staff? Because there's gonna be a lot of support staff on these projects. So you have great opportunity with what's coming. I guess my statement is just be realistic, because every job is looking for people to fill, whether it be union or non-union. That's to me, that's irrelevant. But you have some great programs in the area. I work with a lot of different programs. I work with reentry programs. I work with intercity programs, I work with workforce development, I work with BOCES. I'm sure in Seneca County, you have a lot of, you know, the New York State Department of Unemployment, hold a job fair. You know, sign up on Friday, go to work on Monday type of thing. Right, so there's a lot of opportunity on these projects to give people a chance to earn a prevailing wage. Whatever that wage is, whether you're a laborer, carpenter, operator, electrician, iron worker. Right? So everybody has a different rate, but would be a good rate. So I appreciate your time, and you guys have a lot of solar work coming. I mean, I'm looking at New York State, 30 billion in solar, 30 billion throughout the state. So, I appreciate your time, and if I can help anybody, I'll leave my card and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, number 3 on our agenda is a presentation by the Loewke Brill Consulting Group. I think for your benefit, when the request came in to approve the waiver, the group here, I think, was a little unclear on really why the waiver was recommended, and then I think the group here is interested also in hearing if this is the first, if this would be the first of many successive requests for waivers. What do you expect down the line? Is this the first of many? And if we knew up front what they were going to be, we would have a better sense of evaluating the whole subject.
So I'll let Kevin speak to the specifics on the waiver. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Jim Loewke. I'm the CEO of Loewke Brill Consulting Group. So we are local labor consultants for your group as well as many across the state. We currently work for over 20 different IDAs managing their local labor policies. I will agree with him over there. Labor is really short right now. In general, it's very short. We have a lot of work going on in Western New York between solar operations that are happening across several of the counties. With the Fairlife project in Rochester, the Micron project is coming up. There's another massive project going on in Genesee County. So labor is stretched thin across the board. If you are thinking about making changes to the labor policy, talk with us. We can give you what the current trends are, what's changing around the county. We can be a resource for that as well, as far as what we're seeing, where are the people coming from. I'm always hesitant to say just drop your numbers or outright drop the whole policy, because that allows more people from, say, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania to try to come in. If we can at least keep it in New York, better than, you know, not getting it at all.
And another layer of the questions that we had last week was for this particular part of the project. The placement of these pedestals is described as a proprietary process that can only be performed by their employees or employees of their choice. I guess our question was, how proprietary is that, and is the entire process really proprietary? That is, in getting these pedestals placed. We're not experts, we don't know. And so when you evaluate a request for a waiver, how much of that request really entails proprietary processes?
I think just my thing, proprietary is probably the wrong word. What you're dealing with here is what we call a design build system. So your supplier is also your designer, your engineer, your installer, and your warranty. And so they want to control the entire process. So their whole contract is written around them controlling everything. They want to do the design, they want to do the installation, because they have to maintain the warranty for X amount of years afterwards. And so they won't just sell off the installation to someone local to do the work. And so I wouldn't necessarily call it specialized construction. It can be done by most people, but because they own the design and they own the warranty, they're gonna wanna make sure that they manage that entire process.
And how much of the entire project falls under that same kind of umbrella?
This is a solar facility, so it's probably gonna be the ground screws. Beyond that, I think just about everything else should be,
Yeah, this
handled by local
is 6 to
contractor.
8 workers over a 1-month period is their total duration on site.
For
Yeah.
this part of the project?
Correct. And from talking to the project managers from both of these Lodi projects, they haven't expressed the need for any waivers beyond this. This was the biggest concern they had because this will help them get started with the rest of the work, but utilizing local, civil contractors, local electricians that they've already secured for this. This was their only issue about being able to supply local labor.
and I will say that, on all of the other solar projects that we are currently working on, which this is more than a dozen other solar projects that we're, involved in at the moment. I think this is probably one of the only waiver items that's been coming up
Across the board with all of them?
across the board. The rest of them, the issues have been just lack of local labor. Like the one project in Genesee County, there's a second project in Genesee County that's a solar facility that's almost exactly the same size that is also having the same issues with being able to find enough labor to complete the project that's local. Same as the Fairlife project. They don't have enough workers in this area to keep the local policy to meet it. So there are waivers coming in for just a lack of local labor more than specialized contractors.
Again, I don't mean to be, how do you know? I'm not being disrespectful here, with all due respect. When someone says, look, I can't find the right people, I gotta go outside the area, how hard are they trying? How can you confirm, and again, how do you know?
So in most cases, there's a requirement where they have to reach out to the local building trades, where the project has to be posted publicly, thus giving local contractors the opportunity to bid on the work. So when it comes to a matter of a lack of local labor, whereas they say that there's no contractors available, for one, we want to see proof of communication that they had with the local halls. We reached out to the halls ourselves to determine they've had communication, they've been working together. Have they reached out to a number of local companies outside of that? Because it's not just union, for example. If you reached out to a number of non-union contractors as well, perhaps they can't bid on the project based on timetable or price or not having the
And do you-
workforce to do the job.
Do you then contact, as part of your audit or your role in ensuring this, do you end up calling the same union halls or the same contractors?
Yes, we do.
So we have something called a due diligence report. So a due diligence report basically walks the applicant through all the steps that they have to follow before they even submit a waiver request to us. So that ensures that they've done their due diligence firstly in exhausting all opportunities to secure a local contractor. And then if they have all that and they've provided us all the evidence and they have a submission to us, then we do our due diligence to make sure that they've in fact done theirs. Then we ultimately provide our recommendation to the IDA. In this case with TerraSmart, it's a waiver we've seen for IDAs all across New York State. In Monroe County, we just approved a waiver for this contractor in Tompkins County, but we've seen this contractor all over the place. But obviously, as alluded to already, we are seeing a inavailability of local workforce for a multitude of trades, not just one over the other, but it's pretty much every one. I just reached out for a Genesee project to some of the local business leaders to confirm this information from them. So we're certainly involved in communication with all these outfits as well for our own knowledge of just the broad industry.
We also will request that they go and talk to certain contractors. One of the waivers that just came in for Fairlife, we said you didn't talk to enough contractors. We contacted the local union, got some names of contractors who would be suitable for that. You need to reach back out, talk to these contractors. If they can't provide a price or it's not competitive, then we'll reconsider the waiver. But at this point, until you've done all of this, we're not going to consider the waiver.
Questions?
You seem very comfortable in asking for the waiver. I'm just wondering about in your initial presentation to the IDA, asking for the pilot. I never heard a mention of any waiver that might be coming down. Is that something we should be expecting going forward Is this a normal course of action? When you guys do projects, you come back to the,
Some developers who are used to going through the IDA process will know ahead of time who they're probably going to be asking for a waiver for. Other ones who are working with you for the first time most likely won't understand that these things are going to come up. And their contractors are not always very good at telling them ahead of time, well, we're gonna have to go with this person and you're gonna need to ask for a waiver well in advance.
And the applicant might not always be familiar with who their GC wants to utilize, so sometimes that messaging doesn't always get across at the beginning. Once they've hired their GM's like, oh, there's a labor policy we have to abide by, and then here we are in this kind of situation.
We try at the beginning of every project, as soon as your project is approved by the board, we will reach out to the general contractor and we have a sit down with every general contractor and explain the policy and explain the procedures. We explain how this is going to work, what documentation we're going to require. We go through every one of those documents with them and educate them on the policy. Some are easier to deal with than others.
And obviously for you folks, we also do the local labor monitoring, so we visit all these project sites once a month to ensure that these projects are ultimately meeting their 70% overall goal. I think it was a couple of years ago we recommended that Onondaga County be added because we kept seeing workers coming from that area, so we did recommend expanding the local area in this case, and what you did, which certainly has helped things in that nature, but our job is to ensure that all these projects are upholding their side of the bargain. I mean, ideally they're getting close to 100%. That would be ideal, but that's not always realistic, obviously, but that's also what our involvement is in this process.
and I'm just curious, being through this process a number of times, have you identified why there isn't enough labor? Other than you're saying there's a lot of construction.
Yeah, the last couple of years has been a lot of construction. That's really what's generating the lack of labor. There's no one available to work. And, at this point, I would say that, not to single out the unions, but the unions and the non-unions are struggling to get kids interested in doing trade work. So it's just been a challenge to fill the apprenticeship classes.
Has there been any outreach to the school districts or anything like that?
I was just gonna say.
I know that these guys do. They participate in WIMOCO programs. They do the job fairs. I know that the unions themselves go out. I know even the non-unions will attend a lot of the job fairs. I don't know how many of them are involved in the WIMOCO programs, but I do know that there is some outreach to the schools, but we aren't involved on that side. I just know that there is outreach out there.
Other questions for our guests?
Do you happen to know the list of people who were reached out to for the due diligence?
For the TerraSmart one?
For the TerraSmart one, in that case, no, they reached out to TerraSmart. They're a preferred vendor of this particular general contractor.
No,
They've
for the contractors you said, well, we wanted to see if we could use someone else. Like, did they reach out to Sessler to see if they were interested in helping or something like that?
Well, it depends on the waiver scope and what they're applying for. In this particular case, it was for like a warranty, specialized. If it was like a price point differential or whatever, they'd have to provide us their entire list of all the contractors that they did reach out to. We would look for copies of all bids in that case. Again, they chose this company based on their familiarity with them before. There are not a lot of companies that do the foundational ground screws within the Western New York area that we've seen. So again, it's very common for a lot of the IDAs we work for in Western New York for this particular company.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you coming in.
No problem.
We'll be here if you have any other questions on the waiver.
Okay, that takes us to the next item, the local labor policy waiver request. Sarah, do we have anything to update based on our discussion in the last round?
No, I mean, really, you have the materials again in your packet, just in case anybody, wanted to look at them again. But it seemed like based on the nature of the discussion last time that, you all really wanted to meet with our folks from the Brill on the monitoring side of things and ask about that process. So I don't have anything to add at this point unless there are specific questions.
Is there a motion to approve the waiver request?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I would just like to say that I came in here today prepared to vote against doing the waiver, but after hearing these guys talk, maybe we don't have a choice. Maybe that's what construction is up to these days. There's just not enough people to do the work. So let them bring in their special people and go forward, so.
I'm on the same page as Ralph. I mean, I thought we had enough, but apparently not.
Any other comments? All in favor of approving the waiver?
Aye.
Any opposed? The waiver has passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the list, the engagement letter with Major Metzger and Bar. Any comments, any discussion? Sarah, anything to be aware of here?
So for the folks that are on the IDA audit committee, they've already seen this and are recommending approval moving forward with Mengel, Metzger and Bar to conduct our 2025 audit. But for those of you that weren't at that meeting, just to give you an update, we have the price, and let me just try to find here.
15,
Apologies, we had it highlighted before.
15,850.
Thank you, Bob. So the audit this year has gone up just a little bit compared to last year. That's not unusual. But again, the audit committee is recommending approval of moving forward with this group.
Do we have a motion to approve the engagement letter with Mengel, Metzger and Bar?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call. Kevin.
Mr. Brownell,
Yes.
Ms. Capelli,
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie,
Yes.
Mr. Cure,
Yes.
Mr. Bruce Murray,
Yes.
Mr. Tom Murray.
Yes.
Mr. Lot,
Yes.
Ms. Weiss, Mr. Shipley, absent, motion carried.
Thank you. Next, review and discussion of the IDA strategic growth plan.
So this is something that we also presented to the audit committee, in large part because, as you all know, the last 2 years have been very slow for us in terms of projects. And so we looked this year at our budget and our long-term forecast, and this growth plan that we put together, and are sort of seeing them all as complements to each other. So this is sort of the longest term, and then as we move through the agenda, you'll see we'll start getting a little bit narrower focus on the more immediate term things. But this is essentially our vision for the IDA and what we really want to be prioritizing our time on and focusing on to drive new project growth. So with that being said, I think we're missing.
Those are pages.
I think we're missing a page here. That's okay. So we do have some information in here about, or we did on the previous version anyway, but it must not have gotten printed off, which is okay. But just a little bit of background on the value that the IDA provides to businesses. And I'm just going off the top of my head because I don't have it in front of me, but as sort of a refresher for you all, obviously we have our financial incentives. You know, that's sort of the biggest, most obvious piece, but there's a lot of other things that we as an organization can do to bring value to the businesses that we serve. And that includes things like helping with site readiness and, you know, providing site inventories and helping refer people to specific sites for future development. That's partner referrals and engagements and helping companies and developers through the development process through Seeker and our public hearings and the community engagement that we do. So all kinds of things that we are bringing to the table that are sort of just human capital things. Oh, thanks, Ben. You know, connecting people to our other governments for programming, so whether that's grants or tax credits or whatever. And then just other general customer service things that we do through our business retention and expansion programming. So all of those, you know, we have the sort of financial piece and the incentives, but we also have sort of the human capital piece that our team here delivers and is providing. Then taking that, thanks Kelly. Then taking that, we get to this, what we're moving forward with is 5 strategic sectors. So we've identified the value that we bring to folks. And obviously, you know, if somebody comes to us for help, we're gonna help them. But this is really where we're gonna be most proactive. So we have 3 sectors that we've identified in the near term, and 2 that we have identified in the long term. And the 3 near term are semiconductor supply chain. I don't think that's really a surprise to anybody given the state's prioritization of that industry and also our location geographically along the tech corridor from Syracuse to Buffalo, and really even more broadly from Albany to Buffalo. Agriculture and food processing, again, I don't think that should come as a surprise to anybody, but capitalizing on the existing assets we have in meat processing, other agricultural and food processing, and then of course craft beverage processing and logistics. In the longer term, we are looking to target clean tech fluid systems and solid waste alternatives. And both of those are sort of geared around key employers that we have. So the first being, you know, ITT Goulds as being a key economic driver in the county with the R&D and the work that they're doing and trying to capitalize more on the talent that is here because of that, you know, the skilled talent that is here. And then obviously the solid waste alternatives is really driven from, we have the largest landfill in the state. It's always the elephant in the room for people when it comes to talking about the future of the community, the future of economic development. And, you know, we should be looking at ways to promote a better, cleaner, greener, you know, community for the future. And how do we find solutions to the landfill for the long-term health of the community? So those are the 5 strategic sectors that we are targeting. The way we are going to be doing that, and this page got cut off, but we can send everybody an email afterward with the full presentation so you see it. But how we're doing that is we are pulling lists of NAICS codes, so North American Industry Classification System codes, in each of these industries. And so that is essentially our way of trying to capture the entire supply chain. So freight tracking, general warehousing and storage, refrigerated warehousing and storage, packaging and labeling services. And what we're doing is we are generating these lists of NAICS codes. In some cases, we have hundreds of NAICS codes for some of these industries, and there's some overlap between them as well. We are then running that against a list that we had previously created of all of the companies in Seneca County that was pulled from Department of Labor data. We assigned those companies NAICS codes using ChatGPT way back when, because Department of Labor doesn't have them with NAICS codes associated. And then we are running our list basically against these NAICS codes to show what businesses are existing in the county that are within these industries. So we're sort of in our own way doing some pre-existing, let's say, asset mapping of who is here and what are they doing. And then, as you see on this page, we have, you know, examples. So Risk Transport, which is Wadhams Enterprises, you know, they're in general freight trucking. You've got Seneca Falls Specialties and Logistics and warehousing, Waterloo Container and packaging and labeling services. But then we have some blanks here. We don't have refrigerated warehousing in Seneca County. We don't have packaging machinery manufacturing. So those would then be indicators to our organization and our team that maybe those are areas of future opportunity for us and things worth pursuing. So this is really meant to target not just how we look at our existing businesses and how we, help them fit into the bigger picture, but also where do we see opportunities for new business attraction growth. So that's what we're doing with our NAICS codes. Then we transition into our site readiness priorities, which we're really looking at as sort of a two-part thing. We've got obviously the northern part of the county, which for our purposes is going to be most heavily focused around these strategic industries, in large part because of its proximity to the thruway and the need that we're going to have for transportation, outside of the county. Not to say that some of these industries couldn't have, growth potential in the southern part of the county, but we're really looking at the north. Ideally for a future industrial site is essentially what that boils down to, but also supporting other site development. And then in the south, really focusing on support of the tourism industry, housing growth, and just quality of life improvements overall. So continuing to support Willard redevelopment opportunities, Village of Ovid redevelopment opportunities, but we don't necessarily see those as areas that the IDA is going to be the lead agency on. We are at this point really just a supporting agency and looking to take a bigger role when it comes to these 5 sectors that we have identified. And then the last bit, which is cut off for you all, but it's just a bit of a call to action, is we have a sort of a here's what our next steps are for everybody. So we're looking for buy-in from this board in terms of this strategy and this plan long-term. We want to make sure that you all are in agreement that this is a good focus for us and our time, because it's going to be a substantial one. We're going to be looking to pursue very heavily shovel readiness, especially in context of our defederalized loan funds that we're working on securing. We're going to be looking to develop industry-specific marketing for each of these and maybe work toward getting a project's benefits calculator, maybe looking at something on our website that could do that. We do it already internally for companies. We'll model out a project for them, but maybe something that's a little bit easier for them to interact with. And then, of course, we'll be looking to track our success through our business retention and expansion program, trying to share as much information as we can with you all on the qualified leads, applications, and all of those things that come with a project and the development process for us. So that is sort of in a nutshell what our plan is. Okay.
Can I
Questions?
add something here? So Dave has created this slide series, and he's going to email it around, and it's really terrific, and it just gives a overview and like a refresher on what the IDA is and how it fits in, because it's a peculiar aspect. You can't be in competition with the banks for funding, for instance, or we're there to help in a specific segment, and this describes it. And this is the kind of thing we're going to be taking to the planning boards and the town boards. I'm going to work with Dave on this to refresh everybody's understanding of what the role of the IDA is. You've probably seen it in the Finger Lakes Times. There's a lot of people who they think the IDA is the worst organization that's ever been conceived of. And they think it's just a giveaway. And we've got to counteract that misinformation with some good solid information. And this fits in with all that other stuff. So there's lots of work going on. So that's it. Thanks.
Okay, so part of what I think prompted this presentation is the 5-year forecast. And Sarah, do you want to take us through that?
Sure. So let's start with the worst case. We'll go from worse news to better news. And so just as a refresher, the way we have always done our worst case long-term forecast is taking what we have as known revenues. And by that we mean things that are contracted or that we reasonably expect to have, like interest income on CDs, that sort of thing. And then against budgeted expenses, and we always assume a 3% increase in expenses. So what you'll see is what the first column is, our forecast for the remainder of the year. We are still expecting some agency fees to come in for this year. At this point, we're still expecting to close on those 2 Lodi solar projects that you all just approved the waiver for. So that revenue would be coming in. And based on our forecast for this year, we would expect to end the year with cash on hand of just over $1.5 million. All right. Then we have put in our proposed budget, but this is not the actual budget that you will be seeing. So this would be the proposed budget, but minus estimated agency fees. So this is only accounting for expected agency fees, which would be in this case, Scepter has an annual agency fee payment they make to us, and Finger Lakes Rail has an annual agency fee payment they make to us. There are no other projects included in this.
So in the absence of any new agreements, we will run out of money in 2029.
Yep.
Mhm.
Is there any misunderstanding there? That minus 47,000 is what our checking account shows in 2029.
You're technically out of cash.
We're out of cash, yes.
Isn't too good in 27 or 28?
No, it isn't.
No. So this is worst case, basically if we can't close any new deals.
This is, if we have another Great Depression era economically and no new business occurs, that's what this looks like. I was very encouraged what these guys were saying. If they haven't got enough labor around and they've got all these solar projects, it sounds like there's a lot going on around us.
If there's all this construction going on, we're not getting our fair share here.
Well, and Dave's been saying that we seem as a county to have a reputation of being difficult to deal with. So I don't know whether that's influencing this or not, but.
I think a lot of these projects we're talking about are also coming from.
As part of it.
Well, we can draw labor from around, but labor's short everywhere.
Mhm.
So we have a worst case scenario.
Yes.
What's a better case scenario?
So the better case scenario is the one, if you flip the page over, it's forecasting income. And so what we've done here is we've added in a line, or a few lines you'll see, because we've broken it down for you, of estimated agency fees. And we have estimated those in a combination of ways. So you'll see the total line, if you go across estimated agency fees in the bigger font. The smaller font is sort of the makeup of that. So these are by industry: ag and food processing, craft beverage processing and logistics, hospitality, manufacturing, and renewable energy are the ones that we're sort of tracking right now.
And just for clarity, if it says $60,000 in agency fees, what is the size of the project?
So there are 2 different answers to that, because it's sort of, these numbers are coming from 2 different methodologies. In the first, let's say, 3 years of this, so 2026 through 2028, those numbers are being driven by projects that we know about. So projects that are actively in our pipeline that we are tracking and have some information for. We are estimating the likelihood of those projects closing times what we estimate the agency fee to be. So the agency fees that you see being estimated in 2026 through 2028 are a portion of what they would actually be upon closing.
And agency fees are, once again, 1% of the capital.
1% of the capital cost of a project. So if you look at 2029 through 2031, we would have normally shown a significant drop off, because of the projects in our pipeline, it becomes much trickier to actively try to say something is going to close 5 years out. So what we have done really in methodology for those 3 years is to look at the target industries that we're going to be pursuing in that strategic plan. And we have looked at expected growth of those industries and at the number of businesses we have and sort of how large they are as a makeup of the county. And we have provided some estimates of how many projects we think would close at a certain dollar amount. And so, for example, in 2029,
Can't silence the tap app.
in ag and food processing, we're estimating 60,000 in agency fees. That's being driven by the assumption that we would have two $3 million projects in ag and food processing in that year. Craft beverage processing and logistics, that's being driven by the assumption, I think it was that there was one $1 million project, or two $500,000 projects. So, you'll see orders of magnitude. Obviously, agriculture is one of the largest industries here in our county. We feel these numbers are still fairly conservative,
So they
but
look
these
very
aren't based on
conservative.
specific projects that we know of.
Yeah, these look very conservative to me.
What is the typical lead time between the moment we discover a prospect and then when we get the fee paid?
It varies widely.
So, if it's, let's say it's 3 years, maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 1 year.
It's for non-solar, it's fast usually. So for non-solar projects, if they come to us, if somebody comes to us with a project, they're usually turning around an application and wanting to get through our board approval process as quickly as they can and then wanting to close shortly thereafter. I would say less than a year typically for those projects. Solar is, as you all know, very long-term. Things happen and they'll seem like they want to move really fast through our approvals and then takes forever to get to closing. I mean, we approved Trulina before we had a local labor monitoring policy like we do. They're not subject to our local labor monitoring policy because of that. That project was approved in 2021. It's been waiting 4 years for closing, and we're probably not going to close on that for, I would say, 2027 maybe.
I guess my point is, we should know well before 2029 whether we're going to generate these amounts in agency fees, if we can. And that's the concept of a pipeline. We know about them quite some time before they actually come to fruition. And if that's typically the case, then we should know within the next year to 18 months how likely these 29 and 30 numbers are in a perfect world. And if we don't, if we've done all the legwork and hit all the companies that appear on the lists that David and Sarah and Kelly have put together in each of those industry categories related to those key industry segments, if we've called on every single one, and every single one of them says, we're fine, we got, everything's running smoothly, we're in good shape, we don't plan anything for the next 5 years, we know we got a problem. And I don't know, that's the point of this exercise here. And there are other, we aren't the only IDA that's had a couple lean years. There are other IDAs that have just a year of cash in the bank. And that's not where you want to be without a list of pipeline prospects that you know where they are in the process. And the bottom line here, if all this comes to, if we can make all this happen, if we can do the work now and in the next 18 months, we should be able to know how realistic this is. That's my belief, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
But it means doing that inventory of all the businesses in the county, and there's a good start on that inventory. And sitting down with the people that are the principals, the decision makers in those companies, and saying, what are you planning? And if they're not planning anything, we need to recognize that's not an area of opportunity for us. And we need to listen at that time. We need to listen to what the objections are, and why aren't you planning? And what can we do to alter your plans? That's the only way I know how to do this. And it's face to face, it's getting to know their business, getting to know what's keeping them. If it's, as Ben can say, we've heard it, Tom Keim used to sit here and say the same thing, which is, it's hard to do business in Seneca County.
Just a comment too, if it went out one more year on this schedule,
Yeah,
you've got a problem.
well, maybe, I guess.
I'm
depends
just
on what
saying,
the-
you know.
Depends on what I guess, maybe 2032,
But-
it's possible, it's possible,
Yes,
wow, sure.
Yeah.
So, so my own feeling is that if the county's administration, which includes the IDA, can get on the same page, and if we can convey to the county that this is a team effort here. I mean, David Hewitt had a conversation with an engineering firm that said, I mean, they were saying, look, the same thing. I mean, these are the folks that get approached by a developer to do the engineering on behalf of someone that's contemplating a project. And if they say, look, it's just tough to do business here, we've got to convey that to the people who are making it tough. And we have to make it clear to their administration and their managers that if that's going to be the way it is here, we're not going to see these numbers. We're not going to see these numbers. I mean, Tom Keim used to sit here and say the same thing.
I think anybody that's owns a business and tried to do projects has experienced that same thing.
You have, Tom.
Yeah.
But we need to get it, but we're not going to solve it sitting here
No,
complaining about it.
You know, I've been at the county several times preaching about it over the years, and I will say there is some, I think it's a little better, but I do still think it's pretty hard to do business in this.
And I think we need to be clear, I think we need to be clear with our counterparts in the county. There's an IDA, or the LDC that the county has just formed, the Local Development Corporation, made up of 7 new faces that have not to date been part of economic development in the county. You know, the Board of Supervisors, the chair, they're all, at least in spirit, supportive of this, but this is black and white. You know, the
Yeah.
lights go out in 4 years. I mean, really. And you know, the IDA can't be solely responsible for it, nor can the LDC. We all have a piece of it.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I got one on the worst side. You mentioned the Lodi project, with closing this year and getting our money. How far along are they now?
So the last I heard from the developer, they were getting the survey done and they had expected that to be done very shortly. And we're making it sound like that survey was one of the things that was needed, you know, was sort of holding up the closing. The other reason that I'm somewhat confidently saying that I think we're gonna close on it this year is because of the waiver discussion. So when the board tabled the waiver at the last meeting, the developer was getting nervous that things weren't gonna move forward. And, you know, they have their own sort of idea of when they would like to start construction. And they can't start construction until we close on an agreement. So, you know, it seems like all the pieces are moving in the right direction, and it's just been hard to get a definitive answer out of their attorneys as to when the actual closing will be.
I guess my point is, we're almost at the end of the year now.
I know.
The solar systems are not moving like they should be. So that's all. So I don't really think you can count on that for this year.
Maybe not.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments on the plan? Okay, thank you, Sarah and David. Next item is the presentation and approval of the proposed 2026 IDA budget.
So this was also reviewed by the audit committee, and is being recommended for approval. You have, the first page, which is sort of the overview of the budget, and then the attached 2 pages are a more itemized version for you all to look at. And you'll actually see the breakdown of projects, and various line items, you know, things under professional fees and services, whereas on the first page you see it as sort of a consolidated whole. So I'll go through the detailed version. I'll kind of touch on the highlights for you all. For 2026, as you see, we've got the Scepter fee and the Finger Lakes rail fee. Those are the contractually sort of expected agency fees, and then you see the $264,000 in estimated agency fees. That corresponds with what we've estimated in the forecast. In 24, that was attributable to a manufacturing project, and 240 to a renewable energy project. But again, if those projects close, the actual agency fees will be much higher. This was formulated based on how likely we think the projects are to close. Other than that, you know, we are budgeting $65,000 from the county. We did request $100,000, and I'm not sure what the status is of our request in comparison with what the county will actually end up passing for a budget. But, you know, we do know that they've got some tough budgeting years ahead, and so are realistically thinking that maybe we'll be flat funded for a year. We were estimating rent income from leasing our office space out. We did have a potential tenant, as you all know, that was interested. They have since rescinded the interest. So we're back to square one in terms of finding a tenant, but still trying to push forward in that direction. Won't get into the RLF income. It's just really our loan interest and things being paid out, and then same with IDA interest income, you know, largely from our CDs. So then moving on to the second, you know, page of the detailed breakdown, we get into expenses. So you see payroll, you can see, you know, itemized for myself, Kelly, and Dave. Our benefits are broken out here, which thank you, Kelly, for doing that. This has been a tremendous amount of work for her, trying to piece out all of the various medical, you know, costs with paychecks. So you'll see that there, Social Security, workers' comp, unemployment, New York State retirement. And then the medical line is the total, and then with underneath that you see breakdowns for health, dental, vision. And then the paychecks fees are because we purchase our health insurance through paychecks, so they, you know, charge a fee for administering that. Professional services, we have cut out the line for engineering in large part because if we're going to have engineering work done this year, it'll end up being paid out of our defederalized loan funds, likely in conjunction with, you know, shovel-ready site development. We've got our audit fee in here, and it shows up twice, so you'll notice, you know, when we approved the audit fee, it was like 15,000 and change in total. Here it shows us 13,400. That's because that is the IDA portion. The single audit portion gets billed under an RLF expense, so that is also in here. Public relations, we're not expecting anything there. Accounting is holding steady. Business retention, we've cut that line. We have canceled our contract with Jim Armstrong. Going forward is a way to save expenses, and our staff will be fully handling our business retention and expansion in-house as we transition to our new strategy. Our bookkeeper, CFO, those lines are staying the same from previous years. Internet and network support, so that includes, you know, our IT service support, our internet costs, that kind of thing. Payroll services, that's what we pay to Paychecks for them to administer our payroll for us. And then, you know, we have some legal costs estimated in here. Other than that, general office, there's nothing really crazy in there. Admin and technical, our dues and subscriptions are, you know, one of the largest line items at just under 14,000. That's in large part because of the dues we pay to organizations like Greater Rochester Enterprise, New York State Economic Development Council, our CRM software is in there, chamber membership, all of those kinds of things. Insurance, you'll see the breakdown, so we've got our directors and officers plus our building liability insurance. About just under 9,000 in total for both of those. Travel and conferences, we're holding that steady and actually dropping it down from our 2025 budget a little bit, trying to be more conservative with our spending. And then repairs and maintenance obviously is a significant line, especially compared to where we were in 2024, but that's in large part this building, so we're estimating 33,204 in spending related to this building. And then general marketing line of 5,000. That is more or less it. We are projecting with this budget a net loss of 120,000 for 2026.
Questions? Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the 2026 IDA budget?
I'll make it.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'll say, in difficult times, I think you guys are doing a good job. It worries me that you're cutting down on conferences and advertising and stuff, because that's the marketing outreach, but I understand that, and maybe we can, when we get some agency fees coming in, we can restore some of that.
Yeah, we've never really done marketing spending, so we've kept 5,000 historically in our budget just in case, and I've never really spent it on anything until this year when the board wanted to allocate 5,000 to locate Finger Lakes. It is one of the things that we could be spending a lot of money on, but we really are trying to be very intentional about our use of funds, and it's very easy when it comes to marketing programs to have that money go out the door without any return coming in. So
Well, tangible return, the returns come in future years because of the awareness. It's a difficult
yeah,
point.
you also have to have a very specific audience in mind and a very specific thing that you're selling, and we have not really had a site or anything worth advertising out there to a broader audience. The closest we've sort of gotten was Willard, but obviously there's still no site transfer from the state. It would be a waste to spend money at this point, really like paying for marketing for something. And our industrial park is great, but it's only a couple of small lots left, so not really worth spending a marketing campaign on. So some of the work that we're going to be doing will be gearing us up maybe toward future years of, being able to do some more proactive spending associated with the development we're working on.
Other comments?
In their revenues, is there anything for renting out any of the building?
There is a line in there. We put it in here as 21,780. So when we were talking with that potential tenant and conversing with you all on it, that's sort of, I think, the lowest end of what we would be receiving based on a minimal amount of space being used by a tenant. Obviously, at the end of the day, anything is up to this board and sort of your discretion on what the, rent payments are and everything. But we tried to be conservative there. Maybe we should have taken it out after things fell through with that prospective tenant, but we'd like to think that we can, still bring somebody in here, and maybe somebody that'll be a better fit for sort of our everyday office life.
The one thing I would say is, we're getting about 11% of our operating expenses from the county. And what that does is it forces this organization to generate its own revenue. Having independence is great. You have the freedom to do what you need to do, but it doesn't come without some cost in actually generating agency fees from active solicitation and recruitment of developers and economic actors in the county. It's kind of holding our feet to the fire. It really is. It's what we should be doing. We're not living off the taxpayer. I don't think we should be. We should be better than that. Anyway, any other comments?
I do know, so, again, and this came up in the audit, or in the finance committee, and I know it's a sensitive subject, and I'm not looking for, to make any drastic changes, or anything like that, or suggesting, but, the medical cost, the health insurance is a fortune. And I know that part of it is our, we have 3 employees, so it is gonna be more expensive. Has there been any consideration of looking at what, even dropping down one plan, or, looking at what that would save and what that would mean? I mean, we're losing, hundreds of thousands a year. If there's an area that we could potentially save 20, 30,000 a year, has that been looked at all? Is really my only question.
So you all have in front of you, Kelly had printed out, and I think we could probably pass the other ones down around the table, Kelly, that you. So what you have in front of you is a spreadsheet that shows, it's this
This one too?
long legal
Just
one.
take that one. Sorry.
Thanks, Cal.
So this shows, the highlighted yellow line is our existing health insurance plan. The other lines are what Paychex has offered to us as sort of alternatives. And then the page that is going around right now is because we were asked to show a comparison with Seneca County. We are not a union here, obviously. I think you guys are all aware. The county does have a union, and while not all county employees are union employees, they still benefit from the union negotiated rates that are paid for health insurance. So the page that just went around shows, their first plan here, their Excelis Blue, which we have Excelis as well. If you compare, our existing plan for a single person is $1,400 roughly, whereas theirs is $955. We're not quite paying twice as much on some of these, but it's close. We don't have that kind of negotiating power. Ultimately, that's, any discussion of benefits, I think, is up to the board. I think that's as much as I'm going to say on this at this point.
Is there any possibility that our insurance could be through the county, join their plan?
I don't know. We used to have like our, liability and directors and officers and everything through the county, and when we moved, we didn't have the benefit of sharing insurance with them anymore. They made it clear. So I'm not sure that we would be able to benefit from health insurance.
Well, it doesn't cost them anything for us to participate in their plan, does it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if we would qualify.
Right, that's the,
Being actual, I don't know that we would qualify. I don't know for sure, but I don't think we
I
would
don't see
qualify.
I don't quite see how moving our office space would affect our ability to participate in their plans. I don't know. We need to, this is a big topic no, it's a big topic that before we do it, if we're to do anything, we gotta all understand it, and we're not there yet. And we're looking at our expenses, we're looking at our revenues, and I think it's prudent to do that. But until we fully understand them, I don't think it's prudent to suggest to make changes.
so the, just ongoing work is just to find out if there's a chance we could integrate into the county and get a cheaper rate. That's just a question to ask.
Okay.
Would the coverages be the same?
So
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's gotta be
this is
apples for
where we are
apples.
now. The highlighted is where, this is the plan we're on now. Excelis Platinum 2.
Does the IDA cover 100% of that?
Yes.
So, okay, so there's no employee contribution towards that?
Right.
And the county has 10% employee contribution?
Yes.
Other questions, comments? We have a motion to approve the budget for '26. Any further discussion? If not, Kelly, we can make a roll call.
Mr. Brownell?
Yes.
Ms. Capelli?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Mr. Carrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bruce Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Tom Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Lot?
Yes.
Ms. Weiss?
Yes.
Mr. Shipley, absent, motion carried.
Okay, thank you. Jeff's not here. Ernie, can you give us a report on the county's activities?
Major budget tonight, youth and health, nice and nice. And have infrastructure, facilities, and other highlights. Got quite a lot going on tonight up at Obed. A budget and tax proposal, aging services for the youth groups, energy, environment, and housing.
So
Tonight's meeting is at Papa Bear, at Obed,
at 7 o'clock?
6. Actually, we were starting some committee meetings at 4 o'clock, so
Thank you, Ernie.
you're welcome.
Other business?
I guess I'll just bring attention, so we don't need to get into all the details, but we did provide in the briefing memo some additional information for you all on the revolving loan fund program and what it's likely gonna mean when we defederalize. I'm happy to talk about it here in the meeting if you all would like, but that was really more for informational purposes. We are still working through actually getting it defederalized. And with the government being shut down, our EDA representative is not essential, so it's gonna take some time to actually get the approvals for that. But as we have any changes to restrictions or, you know, further guidance, we'll certainly let everybody here know.
What is the timetable on that?
Originally, we were thinking that it would be approved by the end of the year, but I'm not sure at this point.
Because of a federal government shutdown. And the people we were talking to are part of that shutdown.
Yes.
Okay. Questions? And how much is it, again, is in that fund? A little over $1 million?
A little over $1 million.
Okay. I would like to request a motion to enter into executive session for the discussion on the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property where publicity could substantially affect the value thereof.
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, this should be brief. So I wanted, at the last meeting. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, hang on. Something's wrong.
Okay, we've come out of executive session. There have been nothing to report from that session. Is there anything else that we need to cover? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. We are now going to move into the EDC meeting.
So most of you are free to go if you would like. You're also welcome to stay. We only need Bruce and Ralph and Bob at
Right,
minimum.
because Jeff is not here.
Jeff is not here.
See you next time.
I gotta borrow you.
Okay. I'll be right back.
I got it right here. So, I don't know whether it's anything or not, but a dairy farm heading to Cybolt Road, Thompson Zone called Canova Spring Farms, has just been sold to another dairy out of Cuyahoga County. I believe they're gonna expand the place and build some new buildings there and milk cows there again. Don't know whether they'd be interested in some kind of IDA incentives. Their name is Van Nostrand's. My son has a telephone, but I don't have the telephone number for him. We just worked with this year, we chopped a bunch of corn.
What did you say the name of the farm was? Canova?
It's Canova Springs Farm.
I can check. The issue with actual farms is the ag exemptions you guys get. I mean, you can't do that and IDA incentives, and generally I think ag
Where
exemptions
they
are
go for that or
probably
not, I don't know, but I
Okay.
thought maybe something to reach out for, and I'll get you a telephone number.
Okay, yeah, that would be good. You said the last name was Van Nostrand?
And they're from south of Genoa, about 5 or 6 miles. They were 41 horsepower dairy in Cuyahoga County, but they're surrounded by dairies at least as big as them or bigger, and they can't get land.
Okay.
And they just built a $10 million barn 2 years ago, and they're probably going to have to do at least that much money on this farm,
Okay,
building buildings. So, I don't know,
we'll look into it. Thank you.
maybe something. They haven't closed or anything like that, it just announced last Monday morning, so.
Okay.
Excuse me, one quick second. Okay.
We are, yes, we're on.
So I'd like to call the meeting, the EDC meeting to order. It's Tuesday, October 14th, 2025. We have the minutes to start with, to approve.
Make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Minutes of the EDC meeting have been approved. Next is the financial statements through August 2025.
Yes, and they're in the packet, but they are the last page. We had, printed these out after the rest, so.
Okay.
It's pretty simple. I guess let's start with the P&L, because that's what was on top for everybody. This is January through September of this year for the EDC. So we've had $1,647 in insurance expense. And then professional fees is largely the auditor at $5,850, and then CFO at $2,250. And then $50 in special fees and payments. That's for posting our stuff to the IRS or whatever the filing that we have to do. So that is our total expense of $9,797. We've earned $33.54 in interest income on a savings account. So overall, a net loss of $9,763.46. If you flip the page over, our balance sheet is on the other side. So we, as of September 30th, had $107,378.73 in our checking account. minus the loss brings our total equity to $107,378.78.
Okay, any questions? We don't need to approve those, do we?
You can, if you would like to.
Motion to approve.
I second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Those are passed. Next is the engagement letter, again with Mengel, Metzger, and Barr, same,
$6,075. That includes a regular audit plus a tax return.
Is there a motion to approve the engagement letter?
So moved.
I second that. Kelly, we need a roll call.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Mr. Locke,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley, absent, motion carried.
Next is the budget.
So the budget is pretty straightforward. I guess we'll look at the long-term forecast first. Quick, we only do a worst case for the EDC since there's no activity. Obviously, we are recommending dissolving the agency. We are estimating 45 in interest income for the year. You see our professional fees listed. We do put an estimated legal costs just in case there are, expenses associated with the EDC. But based on our budget, our operating cash would come down to $92,599 by the end of 2026. The EDC has plenty of money to continue operating if it needed to through 2031. But there is no activity really in that agency, and we don't see that changing now that the county has an LDC. It's capable of doing all the same kinds of things that we could do.
So what are the procedures to actually dissolve again?
So that was in the packet. Let's, do we want to do a budget approval first?
Sure, let's do that first.
Make a motion for budget approval.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Budget is passed.
Okay, so Rob put together this sort of nice checklist. So the first page is the sort of the order of operations that things would, that we would need to go through in order to dissolve the EDC. So this board would need to develop a plan of dissolution, has to describe all of the organization's assets and liabilities. Thankfully, that's a fairly easy task. It must provide, that all of our liabilities and costs are paid, so things like final audit and, legal fees associated with dissolving and all of that sort of thing. Anything that is remaining would need to actually be distributed to, that was the Job Development Authority that we determined, right, Rob, per the Articles of Incorporation.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that's remaining that isn't needed to pay final cost has to go to New York State, to their New York State Job Development Authority, which is an organization that I will admit I am not familiar with.
Where did the money come from in the first place? Do you know?
Largely leasing. at
Rail
the-
car store, like all kinds of things at the
Right.
depot, mostly depot.
Mostly depot operations.
Mhm.
No,
So if we dissolve this, the money goes to the state, it doesn't come back to our IDA?
No.
But why the hell do we wanna dissolve it?
Well,
Let's
I agree.
Let's just-
I agree.
Why don't we give
That
the
is
state
something
anything?
that I did not anticipate, because our bylaws, for whatever reason, say that upon dissolution, the funds would go to the IDA, but the Articles of Incorporation for the EDC take precedence, and those outline the New York State Job Development Authority as the organization that would receive.
Can we talk to them and ask them if they would agree to allow us to retain them for workforce development in Seneca County?
That's no idea.
I'm gonna defer Rob on these questions.
Yeah, I mean, you can. I don't know, though, that, I mean, the two options in the statute are either distribution to the municipalities within Seneca County or the Job Development Authority. We concluded it was a Job Development Authority because of the interplay between what was in the bylaws and that statute. And I can't recall exactly what the language was in the bylaws, or not the bylaws, the certificate of incorporation that I referred you to. So
We
under-
have printed copy of that
Yeah, it's in
actually
here.
attached to this. So the articles of incorporation are on the following pages. And I don't know where in here, I can't recall in here where it was.
I think the moral of the story is, under any circumstances, I don't see that the funds are gonna come back to the IDA.
Okay, which is fine, I mean, but we can find a place that would benefit, maybe.
Yeah,
we could
I don't
try.
think there's any harm in contacting the Job Development Authority, and I think, in the context of having the AG approve, so the step, after you have your plan of dissolution in place and the board has approved it, then it has to be approved by the AG. And, in connection with that, if we took to the AG some kind of consent from the Job Development Authority that they forego this, I don't know what the AG would do, but we could certainly ask them to approve that plan based on the Development Authority's consent.
The other thing that could be an option perhaps, and I say this with a big question mark because it would, I haven't run this by Rob, but presumably we could find something that the EDC would like to spend the funds on and spend down to that level.
That-
Keeping whatever we would need for, final audit payout. So we wouldn't be able to cover, remember we were talking about office renovations at one point to this,
Right,
we wouldn't be able to cover the full cost of that, but maybe we could do some portion of small something with some of those funds to get them sort of used before we dissolve.
could we, so I guess I need to read the bylaws of the EDC to know what kind of uses those funds could be allocated to. Any kind of economic, there's economic development opportunities other than renovating our buildings.
That's true. It's,
If you look in the language in the certificate of incorporation tracks the language in the statute, which is pretty broad. So section 6A there is, basically construct, acquire, rehabilitate, improve, for the purpose of relieving and reducing unemployment, promoting and providing additional employment, better maintain job opportunities, that sort of thing. So the potential uses are relatively broad.
Okay, well,
it's relatively broad. We do have overall a limited amount of funds. Our balance,
107,000.
our balance sheet, 107,000, and presumably we would need, at least our expenses through probably the end of 2026, let's say that we've already budgeted for, and then maybe, I don't know if there would be additional, but let's say one last, I think all of this depends on timing and how fast we move, but you might need anywhere presumably from, what did we just put in our budget and total expenses? 13,000, almost 14,000, so you'd need anywhere presumably between there and maybe twice that, depending on how long this takes or what the additional spend down is. So you'd maybe be working with about $80,000 or so, something, maybe a little more.
I think we could think of something to spend $80,000 on.
I don't disagree. So this is, obviously we wanted to bring this to you guys because we're talking about dissolution. We got to talk about what the steps look like and what all these things look like. But I think we need some time to really figure out what is it that we.
I would prefer to just let it bleed down to nothing rather than give it to the state. If we can find someplace 80,000 or whatever, so be it.
We've just formulated a new strategy. I think among the things that could be used is to apply that to, in the near term, to executing on this strategy. Now, exactly what that might be, I can think of a few things, but I think we ought to give it some thought.
Is there any other organization within the county that functions like the EDC at all?
The
You have the
LDC.
county, the newly formed county
Okay.
LDC.
Could that be transferred to that?
I don't think, yes, it could be. I don't think we would do that. I would not recommend that.
Just a question.
Yeah, it's a good question. It could be.
I don't think, not as part of a dissolution. You have to have some sort of arrangement, some sort of transactional arrangement to move those funds.
But I think we are, I think, look, I think this plan is excellent. I do, but it implies a whole lot of execution. And I think the first step is identified, that is, what's our list look like? But then after that, it's okay, what do we do with that information? And, we zeroed out our marketing budget, but if it were, if it were up to me, I would recommend using a portion of that in marketing. That means a different web presence, an improved web presence that basically focuses on this. And that is geared toward filling the pipeline and keeping the doors open. I mean, I mentioned the Auburn website. And the Auburn IDA's had a tough couple years too. I think they had a great website, but that hasn't helped. That hasn't made their last 2 years not tough, but it's a good example of how they're marketing themselves in that community. That's one suggestion. I'm not saying that it's the purpose for it, but I can think of a few things. I mean, I think, we could have a separate meeting on that. Okay, any other discussion on this dissolution? Thanks for
Do we
clarifying.
need a table or anything like that, or we?
No,
haven't
we
reached
don't
the
have
point?
to vote on anything regarding this today. It's really a matter of if we want to move forward with it, actually putting together a plan that would come before you all for a vote. But obviously that is in large part going to depend on what we want to do with the remaining assets in the EDC.
It's helpful to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Any other business? No consideration of executive session. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We are adjourned. We're at it again. Bob, you, I guess, are chairing the funding part.
Alrighty. First item on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes of May 13th.
I'll move to approve the motion.
Do we have a second? Must be me then, right?
Well, it's the
Ralph.
three of you.
Oh,
No, Ralph, you're on this one too.
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next item is to review the financial statements for August 2025. These numbers were included, I believe.
On the back.
Yeah, they're on the last page of the packet.
It was a handout, they're not stapled.
I've got
So the balance sheet is, there's a P&L first, okay. So these are again, P&L should be the first one there at the back of the packet. January through September 25 for the funding corp. We've had a bit more income here, largely because we did open a CD for the funding corp this year. So we've got $708.20 in income. Audit fees are $3,450. So a net loss of $2,741.80 year to date for the funding corp. And then on the balance sheet, you'll see we have about $8,700 in a checking account and over $31,000 in a CD. Bringing our total checking and savings to $40,447.93. So that's the cash position of the funding corp. And the only reason we're not talking about dissolution of that is, again, we have a bond outstanding that's being reported on by the, I want to say chiropractic college, but it's the Northeast College of Health Sciences.
Okay.
Motion to approve the financials?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next item is the engagement letter.
Yep, so this one, the total amount, I'm just gonna look at the budget here. Total amount for our audit is $3,575 for 2026.
Mhm. Any questions regarding the engagement letter? If not, I would accept a motion to approve the engagement letter for 2025 audit.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. The long-term forecast,
So for the funding corp, we only do a worst case similar to the EDC because there's no activity and no new revenue. The funding corp would have revenue if there was a bond project. It would receive an agency fee like the IDA does. In this long-term forecast, funding corp has enough funds to get through 2030, but is in the negative as of 2031.
So what does that mean exactly? If we're protecting the bond or whatever for the bond for the chiropractic college, and we personally run out of money, we can't do an audit anymore after that, right? Unless we borrow money or?
Well, this essentially is under the county, so
This-
the county
The
could.
county will do the audit? Pay for
I
the
don't
audit?
know.
I don't
It
know.
could be a
Yeah,
possibility.
we have to, yeah, we have to. I mean, clearly, there's a linkage to the county that no one really remembers or understands.
Yeah.
So the,
So we have to
the
go-
county is the like sole member, I think, of the funding corp is how it's worded, in the language, meaning that even though the board members are, you know, you guys are IDA board members and there's sort of a linkage to the IDA, by that there is no actual formal relationship between the IDA and the funding corp. Really, it's governed by the Board of Supervisors. You know, you guys are appointed by them, but the Seneca County is the like sole member of this funding corporation. I don't know off the top of my head when the bond is meant to be paid off fully and if that corresponds with this long-term forecast. I don't know, Kelly, do you happen to have an estimate of when that would be done?
I'm thinking that there's like 5 million left, and it's usually like $1 million a year.
So
If they
it would be
retire,
roughly
so
5 years.
I would think it'd be about that.
So maybe 2030.
I mean, should the IDA even be doing this if it's really the county's responsibility? Again, I don't know. We can find out.
I would take all the paperwork you have and take it over to Mike Enzo, throw it on his head, here you go, this is yours.
Well, I think we ended up sort of doing the staff administration of it because the funding corp came about because when it was still the chiropractic college, they had a bond with the IDA.
Okay.
And then state law changed and IDAs weren't able to do civic facility bonding anymore. And so they created all these other organizations, and now we have a funding corp that can do civic facility bonding. So it was really formed because of an IDA project, but because of all the law and everything, it was formed with the county being the sole member. So that's, I think, why it ended up with IDA staff doing the sort of day-to-day management, which is not that bad, but I mean, it is a good point of,
I just worry that we're signing the engagement letter for the audit, right?
as a funding corporation
As a
board.
funding, but still, if we sign that engagement letter, when it comes to the point we don't have any more money left in the account to pay the bill, the IDA is gonna be on the hook to pay the auditors. No?
No.
No? Okay.
Nope.
No, that's not my understanding. I mean, the funding corp and the IDA are separate. The only reason that you're involved is because I'm assuming you make a recommendation to the county legislature for board members every year.
It's convenient for us to
And
just have
they
you guys.
appoint you.
We're taking work from, we're taking something off there. agenda.
Well, so even though you guys are IDA board members, you are not on this board as IDA.
Right.
You are Funding Corp board members, appointed separately to this
Okay.
board. For our purposes as staff, it's convenient to be able to do these meetings back to back and to just have the same faces, especially when there's no business going on. Like, it would be nearly impossible to try to do a recruitment for board members
Sure.
for an organization that doesn't really do anything.
Right.
So there is no liability on the IDA for this whatsoever. They're completely separate. It is a great question of what happens, and we've got to figure that out, especially in context of when is the bond really going to be done, and you know, how do we sort of plan if the bond isn't done yet, but the money's going to run out? Like, how do we handle that? And it may be just going to the county and maybe asking for a allocation just to get us through. It wouldn't probably have to be very big either.
Okay.
That makes sense.
I wonder if the county's auditor could audit the funding corp. If we ran out of money. Type of thing.
It'd fall on
Yeah.
their shoulders, probably. Okay? Look, I'm just a member.
So that's the long term, or we already did all of that.
Yeah,
Oh no, we haven't approved the budget yet.
they gotta approve the budget.
Need a budget approval.
I move that we approve the budget.
Is there a second?
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Any other business?
Nope.
No consideration for executive session? If not, I would accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.